It is Reusse Unchained, presented by Josh Arnold, investment consultant, Mr. Money Talk, and we're excited to report that Pat has reported to Twin Spring Training.
Yes.
He's the first one to arrive down there in Fort Myers, Florida.
I have missed 2 straight years of spring training. I looked it up. I was trying to remember. I was here in 21 for a little while, a couple of weeks, but I had gone from 1974 through 2020. I missed once. I told you guys that the other day. And then I'd missed 2 straight years, and I got the itch. You're coming off winning 3 playoff games, and they've made some cheap decisions during the off season. Kind of takes me back to the days of Calvin, so we can give it a little perspective here. So it'll be fine.
Are you going to get the key to the ballpark complex again, like you used to have, the run of the place?
I still have that card that used to get me in the back door. We'll see if that works or not. If the hurricane caused them to change security or not, I don't know.
So wait, they basically said, so you were showing up earlier than
when I was here in January doing the show at the ballpark. I was the only one there for years.
Like, if you want to get there in January, here's a key. Just go crazy. There's popcorn in the closet.
Yeah, I'll. They trust me, for goodness sakes. There's nothing that I always waited for the Glad Man to show up, though, because he had a refrigerator, so you could bring your Diet Cokes, and they didn't kick on the refrigerator till the Glad Man showed up. So that would be tough.
My favorite thing about that complex is when and rest in peace, when big fella Wayne Hadaway, he would literally just be in his pajamas. He'd sleep in the clubhouse overnight, right?
It was, oh man, I miss that guy, because every year he would greet me with a welcome. You got even fatter during the winter, You're going to be he used to say, you're going to be as fat as Brophy and Calvin. This was 20 years after they were both dead. He'd say, I'd still be comparing my girth to Brophy and Calvin. God,
roll tide.
Get out there. Come on, big fella. Pitcher. He'd rub up the pitcher's arm and say, see you in the second inning. That's why every year one of my great giggles is when I look at the Twins list of minor league people. Did you see the email this year?
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be 150 of them, right? On their various teams. They used to run their Florida Instructional League. Cal Irmer was down there as the supervisor, but Cal didn't go to any games or anything. And then you had Kelly, Stelly, Shelley, the pitching coach, and Hadaway. That was Hadaway
running the whole system.
Basically, they had their 60 best prospects down there. They had 3 guys and Hadaway to take care of their needs. It was unbelievable.
Who was the trainer?
Did they must have had a trainer. Because
Hadaway.
During the season in Orlando, they didn't have one. They didn't have one on the grounds. They'd have to call the doc. Hadaway was the guy charged with rubbing balm on their shoulder before they made a start.
And it ain't your fault, kid. It's the scout who signed you.
yeah, right. Yeah, it was. It's amazing. It was. I texted TK that I didn't text it. I forwarded the email on the minor league staff to him. I said, "You get a giggle out of this." So it's a
1-to-1 ratio now. It's a 1-to-1 ratio.
Oh, it is. It's they got a biochemist. I can guarantee you, Calvin never had a biochemist.
No, probably not.
Not in the thing. But I don't know. Are we supposed to be optimistic here or not? They need a couple more starting pitchers. They need they need at least one more to be the 5th, and then they need another one to replace the injured guys. And they probably need 7 to get through the season. So it'll be interesting. The search for starting pitching is probably the most interesting thing this spring.
Yeah,
or a bat.
Well, yeah, they have some money, Falvey said, to spend on something, but it sounds like it's going to be a bat.
He
I think
said
they're
that.
done with their
So,
rotation right now.
so what do they want for a bat? What was it, a DH type or what?
Corner
What?
outfield,
Corner, DH,
DH,
first base.
right-handed, preferably.
Well, they still
Preferably
got
right-handed.
Kepler. They still got Kepler. They still got Wallner. They still got Larnach. So they sure don't need a left-handed bat.
No. There's some
I
guys
like-
out there. I mean, Declan's got a list for us on the SKOR
Got a
North Twin
list.
Show today. But like Jorge Soler is sitting out there.
Mhm.
Carlos Santana is still
I
sitting out
don't.
there.
I don't want a strikeout guy. Sorry, I don't want Jorge Soler.
They might.
but I guess I'd take him if he's. If they take, they're. My guess is they're going to trade Larnach. Don't you? They're trying to trade Kepler, but I don't think they're going to succeed. Maybe they'll succeed. I don't know. But that trade, the trade the other day, D. Scarfano or whatever his name is, they just had to take him back as part of the money. They got, they Polanco. Now they've ended up getting what, 4 million from Seattle.
It
4
net
million
like
from-
a net 4 million with
Yeah, they got it from Seattle, but they took a $12 million pitcher who's probably not going to pitch and gave them Polanco, so they got a little money in return. But that was a and I'm as big a fan, unless Jorge's going to be your DH. You got Julian, you got Brooks Lee. That's not I don't have a big problem with trading him. And I think he should be happy because he's gonna, not have to mess around and look for a spot to play with those other guys. They want Julian. You can't blame them for wanting Julian. I mean, the kid can hit. There's no doubt about it.
This will be the third Canadian brick-handed infielder that the Twins can turn around in the last 20 years.
Yes.
Did you hear? Judd brought this
Koski.
up the other day that apparently it's hard to find places to field ground balls in Canada for certain times of year. So they just want to get him. They want to get him more reps down there in Florida this year.
Yeah, well, that's Koski was a hack.
Yep.
And who else?
Morneau, Justin Morneau.
Oh, Morneau. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was. He was a catcher when they signed him. Did they let him catch the first year? I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think he did. I think he did when he broke in.
I think he might have caught for 1 year. What about that big lug? You would have had the two tallest catchers in the history of baseball, Morneau and Mauer, right?
Yeah.
Coming back.
He did. So he did. They had moved him before he made his major league debut. They had moved him in the minor league. So
before, yeah, but I mean, did he catch his first year in the minors? He might have caught his first year in the minors. Yeah, I think he did before they moved him. Yeah, to first base, and he ended. But it's a little easier to turn a guy into a first baseman than a second baseman. I'm still a firm believer in that. Although then when I remember Miranda, so what do you think Miranda's future is here? Is he done? Are they done with him?
No, I don't think so,
He's
Pat.
right-handed. He's a right-handed bat.
I think he's got a chance.
Yeah,
I think he's got a chance. And Carlos
I'm
Correa
a lot
assured us
more-
he has seen him hit now, and he's very excited, which is of course the same thing that he said last year. But what?
Yeah, but if he stays, he's a DH, right? I mean, Royce Lewis is playing third, and Miranda, you can't put him at first. My God, he doesn't know which direction to run when they hit him.
Well, that
a ball.
hasn't stopped them from putting random guys at first base in the past. So
No,
just go
Hey,
figure it
did you
out,
see-
kid.
Did you see the story on Joey vowing to make more contact this year? With
On Gallo? Oh man.
Yeah. He's gonna,
This is the year where I'm going to
this
make
is
more
the year I'm
contact.
going to make contact. All right. Well, you can't hit a high fastball and you can't hit any breaking ball, but go ahead, go get him, Joey. That's
He's going to bunt more. I think he's going to catch. He's going to catch
I
those
think-
shifting infields off.
I
off
think
guard.
they got him for half of what we paid, though, right? 5 or something. They got him for 5.
It was 5. Yeah,
5.
It's actually amazing that he got I'm assuming it's $5 million guaranteed, right? Like if they don't bring him on the 26th, the fact that he still got $5 million shows you.
And when
Man.
Washington is basically starting all over again, what's the point? I don't get it. What's the point? They're just redoing everything there. They've stripped her down to nothing, and all of a sudden you're going to bring him in and traded all your pitching and everything else. Boy, you think back of that World Series team they won with the pitching they had on that staff, and now, why didn't they pay anybody? I don't understand it. They were filling the ballpark. They decided not to pay anybody. It's really
They
weird.
took their championship and kind of went home, I guess.
Yeah.
Brian Dozier was on that team, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
No shirt
Yes,
on.
he
Yes,
was.
So he was
and,
he was the king of the
but
celebration.
Yeah, he
but
was drunk the whole time.
they gassed him for the playoffs. They ended up
Yeah.
playing
Yeah.
Howie Kendrick ended up playing second base, right? Because
Yes.
Doge was started off okay there, but I was there one day. We were out there for a wedding, I believe, and I saw him hit a home run. He didn't hit many for them. He hit like 9 or something for them. So, but he
Hey,
hit a home
you
run.
can help us. I don't know if it was a debate, but we were trying to figure out who the next Twins player Hall of Famer is going to be.
Ooh,
Three names that came up. So Jorge Polanco came up. Jorge
It'll be a
Polanco,
while.
Brian Dozier, Tom Bernansky. Are any of those 3 Twins Hall of Famers for you?
I say, yeah, you can. The standard has been set. The fact that they realize that they're in trouble for players is the fact they didn't name a player this year. They named Stelly and Terry Ryan. I'd say Dozier on the simple fact he hit 42 home runs and he was here 6-7 years and glad he was a 5-year guy. He won 2 World Series, but we do have some short termers in that Hall of Fame, and Dozier was their best player for 3-4 years. So that's probably the standard that's been set for Hall of Famers. I'd say Dozier because of
It
the
gets
42
really,
home runs.
and the problem is too, because you go through all the old school Twins and then the early 2000s Twins, and once about 2011 hits, it's really slim pickings as to who would
There's
qualify.
There's a reason you stunk for 6-7 years there. I mean, they popped up in 15 and won half of them, but the 11, 12, 13, 14 was the worst stretch in history, and then 16 out of nowhere was the worst team ever. They lost more games than the 82 team, right? The 82 team was the one that all the kids were on. That's where
Herbeck
the dome opened. Calvin gave him a week and then traded everybody.
Yeah.
To the Yankees, right? Didn't
Yeah.
you trade Butch
Well,
and Smalley and all those deals?
Butch, Smalley, Bruno.
Yeah.
Not Bruno, Corbett. They traded Corbett too.
To the Angels,
And anyone who was making more than $50, he got rid of. It was an amazing gouge of the but all the kids. He traded Corbett for Bruno. That turned out to be a pretty good trade, but he was, that's the reason that team was so bad. They all should have been in AAA, basically. Herbie'd come up the year before, but there was a bunch of guys from Orlando, and they were 16 and 54, that team.
Wow.
16 and 54, and Gaetti's famous quote is, "We should change our name to the Hapless Twins. Every time we come to town and you look at the paper, it says the Hapless Twins start a 3-game series with the White Sox today." He says, "We're the Hapless Twins." They went 2 months without a 2-game winning streak, that team.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I'm right. I'm right on that. It was 2 months without a 2-game winning streak. It was. I remember that. I think Engie was on that team, wasn't he, Engel?
Yeah.
And he had I was on a trip to Chicago, and he had his first RBI in a month, 5 weeks or a month or 5 weeks. And I wrote a column celebrating it like it was the birth of a birthday for a baby, or something like that. It was a bouncing baby RBI up the middle, and Angie's one of the great guys ever, but he had a little slump there, and then of course
the throwing disease too, right?
Throwing disease.
Lobbed the ball back to the pitcher.
Of all the things that drove Billy Gardner crazy in his time here, the fact Engie couldn't throw the ball back to the mound drove him nuts. He would rip him after every game. It was Gardner. Some of Gardner's classic stuff was ripping Engie for not being able to throw the ball. Now I got a crazy catcher. I got all these crazy guys because, as I told you guys earlier, he wasn't really sensitive about Izzy's problems either. And he never bothered to say off the record, but we had to make it off the record. You
Yeah.
had to protect. There's some stuff you have to make off the record, even if a guy doesn't say it. Maybe not in modern, journalism, but back then, in '82, if you're going to keep getting the good quotes, you had to let a few get by.
Yeah, it wasn't as much the gotcha media that we live in today.
No, it is not. So, Judd, I think I'm going to write a column. Kevin Allensbach has done a book on the 90-91 North Stars, and Mirage of Destiny. He's
I just got a copy yesterday.
90-91. Oh, yeah. It's
There it
a
is.
big old book.
Yep.
But I think I'm going to write a column for this weekend. Don't lose hope in the Wild, because this collection of mutts was, 2 victories away from the Stanley Cup. Now, the fact it was a 21-team league and 16 made the playoffs made it a little easier. But that's still what one of the. Did you get to many games during that playoff
Yes,
run?
I did. Yes,
How'd
I
that
did.
happen? It's maybe I was trying to analyze fandom. 4,500 people went to a Montreal game in the middle of January,
Yep.
and we all knew Norm was nuts. He had the cheerleaders and everything, that give away the money and
Cash.
all that stuff to get people to come to the games.
Starbucks.
And
Yep.
we knew he was crazy. And yet, 4 months later, he's up there in his podium, up there in his built. What would you call it? It's like his throne up there.
Emperor Suite.
He's like Nero.
Yep.
And the whole crowd's going, Norm, and he's waving like this. It's a psychological study of fandom.
The
I know.
playoffs were on pay-per-view. That's the best
Yes.
part, you guys. He was charging the fans to watch playoffs. Imagine that.
Okay, well, I'll have to repeat the story again. That my favorite dark story ever is I was Norm's buddy. Norm called me at home like I was a hockey expert after that Montreal game. He was crying. He says, "What can I do?" I said, "I don't know. You're talking to the wrong guy." But when he charged pay-per-view and 2/3 of the Twin Cities couldn't get the game because they didn't have access even to pay-per-view, I wrote a column before Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals, ripping him. And the first time he was ever called Norm Greed was in that column. And then they win to take a 2-1 lead in the Stanley Cup Finals that night. And I get in the car at 12:15 and turn on my pal Dark's show, and the theme for the night is, does the Twin Cities really need a negative sports columnist like Patrick Reusse?
651.
The phones are jammed. I call him when I get home during the break and say, "You got quite the show going there, Darky." And he says, "Ain't it great? They bleeping hate you. I might do this tomorrow night."
That's amazing. So they were the Stanley Cup Finals in 1991. There wasn't like a national TV. They weren't on cable.
It wasn't on national TV, and Norm put it on pay-per-view here in the Twins. What was the source, Judd? Then what was it? Wasn't Midwest Sports Channel? Was it? What was it?
It might have been. I forget, but yeah, they were. So the majority of the city didn't get MSC back then. Yeah. So they charged one thing to watch the playoffs period and another for each North Star game. It was the biggest racket ever.
Oh yeah, it was 20. It was something like $20 or something in 1991 or
for a game to watch a game.
Yeah, $15 or something. It was.
And then, but then I remember because a couple years later, I'm pretty sure was it the Canucks Rangers? There a couple years later, ESPN had picked up the rights to the Stanley Cup Finals, right?
Yep. I think what it was the national deal in hockey back then was a group called Sports Channel America.
Oh yeah.
And nobody really had it because, of course, the National Hockey League works in mysterious ways. But then, by 94, I think you're right. I think it switched to ESPN.
Yes, but it was. I'm not sure what the outlet was, but if you didn't, hell, there were still people without cable in 91. So it was, you had no chance to get it. God, he was a crazy crazy human being, but we're all Norm. God,
Norm.
what a great
2 years
what a
later,
great
Dallas.
season. What a great season. You know, Leopold's obviously different, but he kind of got the wacky personality too, but he just kind of hides upstairs, so he doesn't do that. But yeah, it was a phenomenal situation, and you know what else he did, Phil? He got very upset when the media came into town, and he had to give up in the arena. They didn't have a big enough press box, so he had to give up some of his seats. So for game 6, when we got back for game 6, he had knocked out this wall, half a wall in the press room, which was down the way, and put a bunch of seats in there without contacting the city of Bloomington or anything. He just had some guys go in there and knock out half a wall.
I was in there for game 6.
I was in there too.
It was just a lunchroom.
And you felt like the Nazis waiting for our troops to hit Omaha Beach. It was like this bunker up there. It was this bunker. And what I remember is that all of a sudden the TV in there blipped, and we were watching regular TV, and Eight is Enough was a comedy series back then that was popular. And it pops up, and then the final that day was 8-0, so there were some jokes to be made about that.
Yeah.
It was tonight. Eight is enough. It was again tonight too. 8-0 was game 6. So Bob Johnson was the Pittsburgh coach, and he died that summer, didn't he?
Yeah,
he got
brain tumor,
cancer,
right?
Brain tumor nobody knew about, and he died that summer. But what a wacky season that was. That was. So there's hope for the Wild. What the hell?
There is hope. There is hope.
If they make the playoffs, anything can happen.
We just need the NHL to eliminate 9 teams from the league and still keep the 16-team playoff bracket. That's
okay. Okay, I tried to say this on Twitter last night to make fun of it, and people took it serious. But was last night a game that the Wolves would have lost last season? Because the other team didn't have 2 regulars, and it was close at halftime. They ended up beating them by 40.
I mean, listen, as I said last night, a bunch of fans, thousands of fans showed up to see Luka last night. But in the end, they got their money's worth when the other Luka came in and scored 8 amazing points in garbage time. If you rank Timberwolves players based on the loudness of the ovation, I think Naz Reid's number 1. Anthony Edwards is number 2. Luka Garza is in the top 3 for loudest fan ovations.
What's interesting is, though, this that I didn't realize that NBA has the new rules. If you don't play 65 games, at least 20 minutes, you can't be on their first, second, or third All-Pro teams. So Embiid, you can't win any of the awards. You can't be the MVP either, right? You can't win any of their awards.
Correct. Yeah.
Can't get the bonuses then.
Any of the official. Well, it doesn't seem to be changing the way people operate. I know the Halliburton in Indiana complained because it's going to cost him $40 million if he misses 3 more games. But I bet they don't get away with this. Do you think they're going to get away with it?
MVP thing, I think they will. I don't like Embiid's not going to win the MVP.
But the ones based on first, second, and third teams costing you millions of dollars is the union's going to have to something about that. I applaud the effort to get guys to play, but because basketball, as we've said, is so important to have a player because he's, you're there to see 1 or 2 guys. But I can't believe they're going to get away with this. And because if some guy breaks his foot and comes back and is a great player for the last 6 weeks of the season. And
64 games. Sorry. You can't be second team All-NBA.
I mean, Embiid's already been paid, so it doesn't make any difference. But for the younger guys, it's kind of interesting. But they got to do something. I mean, not only. And by the way, Kyrie, what did he come up with?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, is there any more unreliable human being in America than that guy?
No. He's on the Mount Rushmore.
Yes, he is. That's for sure. Anyway.
Well, we're glad you're settled into Florida, and we'll do it again tomorrow. We expect a full report on the state of Hammond Stadium. So
Okay, I'll try
go
to
do
get
some
over
homework.
there today. All right, gentlemen.
All
See you
right,
later.
see you, Pat.
Bye.
Reusse Unchained, presented by our friends at Zero Res today. If you're looking to deep clean your house, which that could include carpets, air ducts, think about all the great areas that Zero Res could clean for you. 3 rooms, Zero Resified, starting at just $119. And also a free hallway this month, and $75 off when you get your air ducts Zero Res clean when you ask for the SKOR North special. 952 Zero Res or ZeroResMinnesota.com. Say you want the SKOR North special. See you guys.